Well, hello there, everybody. It says that we are live, so I'm assuming we are. As the song went, I just want to turn you on. I love that song. It's a Roxy music. What can you say? Welcome, everybody. As I wrote there in the chat room earlier, it is awfully good to know that we have rock and roll. And to whatever goddess or god who may be responsible for such, far out. That's all I got to say. I don't know if music exists on the other side. One would hope it does. It's a vibration, it's a harmony, it's a frequency. Yeah. So I know where I'll be. Welcome, everybody. How are you doing on this Thursday? Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in and being part of the ride. It's rather cool. Uh, you do know you're favored, but I want to say it anyway. I speak favor over all of us who are favored indeed. Nothing missing, nothing broken. So, what's up, chat room? See everybody hanging out there. As I go back, I saw Colleen. How you doing? Blazing River. Like your question from time to time. I was very young. And perhaps some of the species will survive. Don't know. CJ, what's up? Good to see you, brother, from Australia. We're going to really get into that. Hello, Ginger. Lauren, how are you? So good to see you. It's a honor and a blessing for sure. Says that it's still preparing for a live stream. Well, looks like I'm live anyway. So what does it know? What does it know? So anyway, let me see. Yes, Emperor Rex, good to see you. Hello, Grandpa Brian. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Got to get you back on. Get that microphone thing going. Yeah. Hello, Robert Scott. How are you, sir? Stephanie Marie, good to see you, darling. Linda Espinoza, love that. Lost in Space. Sue, Jackie J, good to see you as well. Crazy Old Lady, honored to have you here, my dear. I'm using the name Crazy Old Lady because I was born connected to knowledge on a level that many didn't understand at the time. I'm 75. I was called crazy the first 60 years of my life, so now I own it. There's nothing wrong at all with being crazy. You know, you may say actually that, and I'm one of those. Um, you can say that, I think we are. And that makes us stand out. Um, eccentric is another name they call us. Um, and 75 is not old. You're still in your youth. It's just a different stage of youth. And there is always the idiom that says, never doubt the stimulation of eccentricity. We're the ones that make people think. We're the ones that they want to avoid because sometimes we make them uncomfortable. We're the ones who color outside the lines. So you're amongst friends here, my dear. Thank you and the honor of having you here as well. Hello, Ann. What's up? Good to see you, dear. Dave and Kent, what's up as well? Donnie, good to see you, sir. Mr. Floyd, how are you doing as well? As I go, know thyself, like that. Source frequency, good to see you. And is it Najaya? I love being crazy. Hey, and 70 is not old. I mean, yeah, it really isn't. I mean, today, those turning 70, if you were to rewind the clock 50 years ago, we would actually be in our early 50s. Why not? That's why I kind of look at it. Hello, Jules. Good to see you. Uh, Elderberry, good to see you. Just ordered some of that juice. So good to see you, Monkey Experiment. God, I love you all. Lilith, hello, my dear. And Gaia, much love to you and Paul. So good. It's just good friends here. I mean, DC and Jop from Holland. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Auntie, Queenie, good to see you. And DC, what's up? Gilbert, nuclear war clock is down to 20 seconds. Yeah, I think it's advancing. I keep telling people, watch out after January 20th. Um, let's see, Cryfields, for those of us who perceive Mother Earth as conscious, the future seems almost inevitable. Yeah, and the thing about Earth, we always think that Earth thinks like humans. It don't. We Earthlings, we try to say, well, we know Mother Nature, we know the Earth. The vast majority of humans know nothing at all. And if you tried to tell them again um, that it's a living entity, they'll suddenly move down the aisle, right? Rick, good to see you, brother, as well. And Grace, good to see you. Trust all is well. So, Kathy, good to see you. So I was on Chris Matthews' show yesterday, Forbidden Knowledge News, which is still on YouTube. So it's over there. I believe he'll be posting that. It was a great conversation. Going to have him on over here. I love to see how people continue to grow and progress. It's really cool. Um, Power shift. Yeah, there's a lot of shifting of power. And the thing about it is, power is addictive. There's nothing that can compete with it. Um, and if you have power, you'll do whatever you can to keep power, particularly from those who you don't like. Yeah, yeah. It's it's kind of like this discussion about the extinction. We're in the sixth extinction. I think Blazenwood was right, wrote that said, so what about the other five previous? We've got no record of them. But yet there's a parent. Well, actually, I guess we do. We have, a geological record. So no matter how you look at it, something kicked our asses before, something's going to kick our ass again. And the question is, how close are we to that? It's going to happen. It's inevitable. We're reading the alternative history, and they don't teach this. I mean, could you imagine if every human being was taught, listen, our species has been wiped out before. There's a good than better chance that within your lifetime it may happen again. And if it doesn't, then that's the next generation's burden. But something is going to happen. We read the stories yesterday, and I want to thank everyone who made comments on the video yesterday. It's a hard-hitting video. I went back and watched it again, and it still just pisses me off to no end to think that this Lord, whoever it is, God, has no right to do what they did to us as a species. No, none at all. You can't make excuses for that. And you can't tell me that love comes from that. That was such a traumatic, and it's my hypothesis, just from the material that we read here, that I read on my own, that's probably one of the great secrets. I believe there was a message in the bottle sent to us. And I think that there has been basically coveted by a small group who seems to think that they're somehow elevated above us, but our ancestors knew something. I mean, they were murdered. The act of this Tower of Babel, and apparently, again, archaeologists have found remnants of that tower. I don't know, I haven't been there. But let me just assume that maybe it's true because there's this story that circulates many different cultures. So whatever it was that did to us what was done to us is criminal. If there is a court in the astral realms, then this is a case that I will purposely bring, because the God of this world, if it's it who did this, is not a God at all. And it shows great weakness. I don't care what technology they had. It's obvious they're very insecure and they're very afraid of us. That's just plain and simple. And if our enemy is that afraid of us and did that to us, just imagine what it's going to do to us with technology. That event probably postponed the digital age by 2,000 or 3,000 years. If we had been allowed and left alone to progress in unity, and they said it, I didn't. Their words is that nothing is impossible for them anymore. Whatever it is they want to do, they can do it. That's some pretty heavy words. That we, as a so-called sentient species, little higher than the animal kingdom. I don't know about that. They say just because we're bipedal. I don't know. But nevertheless, we think we have souls. And maybe that was part of the matrix, probably the program, to lead us to believe that we do have souls. It keeps us preoccupied. But again, they delayed what was the inevitable. But now it's corrupted because it divided us permanently. I don't believe that there's any opportunity that humanity will ever come together again. We have to be wiped out. They're going to have to wipe us out. And if the death realm exists, or the next realm, the spirit realm, then who is it controlled by? If it's controlled by the same powers to be here, over there, I don't think it's going to be much fun. Hopefully not. But if it is, it ain't going to be fun. You can't trust them. That's the problem. Someone sent me an email and says, why do you distrust God? I don't distrust God at all. Never met him. Never met it. I have met a lot of wannabes. And the action, again, that this God took. And you have to understand, if we're in the sixth extinction, homicide is the word, by the way, for the day. I bet you, how many of you knew what homicide meant? Come on, be honest. So let's just see what this God has done to us. One, it cursed us. I mean, that's fucked up. It's plain and simple. A so-called all-knowing, all-present being cursed us. Got pissed off. Okay. Then it fell asleep. It, they, us, whoever it is, you get confused when you read the terminology, the Lord God, then let us, who the hell's us? And it ain't the Holy Spirit. People say, well, that's Western ideology, but anyway, I digress. So then it allowed some of its kind to come down here and have a sex orgy, rape women, capture women, start breeding with them. Now, if you want to take another point of view, so I look at that as maybe geneticists. Because again, you get down in the minutia of this, you got to ask yourself, okay, how did the DNA bind, and how are the chromosomes set, and how did all that happen? But apparently it did. Now, whether it was because of so-called aliens coming down. And again, or if you want to get in the spiritual or religious side of the equation, the angels, oh, fallen angels. Um, so this God who knows everything, right? Had to know. So it was complicit. It altered our species. That's the second assault. Then, because of the monstrosities that were the result of this DNA, whatever the hell they were doing in the lab, produced freaks. The giants, which are written about in every culture. So they were here. We did the whole series on King Og. What kind of that was a freaking bloody battle. And we learned that they ate us. Well, that would traumatize our species, right? So thank you, God. Appreciate that one, buddy. Then, because it contaminates our genetic down lineage, our bloodline, then it decides to wipe the world out, except for save 8 people, right? Whatever. So it took responsibility for that. Well, now that's the third time. And then, as we read yesterday, you get this Tower of Babel thing, and it was right after the flood. Now, I don't know how 8 people bred that quickly to suddenly produce that many people, but okay. So they're in Sumer. You know, we don't read about that in the Sumerian tablets, but okay. Shinar is the word. And they're incredibly smart, really smart. And it's a Woodstock, baby. Everybody, I had no doubt they had guitars back there. I have no doubt at all. And the heart of rock and roll I don't think we invented it. I think we adapted to it. It was like, yeah, that's a good sound, man. And why? Because you got like people like Van Morse and John Lennon. So many of them said that they got downloads from the ether. All right, that's cool. That's a positive thing right there. So it tells me there may be an enclave for us. Hey, hope reigns eternal, right? But anyway, so we're digging it. Man, I mean, brother helping brother, household. I mean, it is the unity that we dream of today. Our inept politicians who could never bring this about, no world leader can, because we're not capable of doing it anymore. But back then we had it going. I also imagine that our bodies had to be, wow. I mean, people lived hundreds of years. Your youth would last you 50 years. Now, I look at myself and a modern man, and I think about putting myself in that environment. I'd have just had to be far out. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. And so we're building this freaking whatever. They say it was a tower, beacon, portal, space portal. I don't know. It was big. So they say. And so whoever has already tried to wipe us out 3 different times is now coming back in again. I mean, you can't make an argument for that side. We're here where we are today because it's messed up. So, how's everyone in the chat room? He says you can have a lot of kids if you live 100 years. Yes, you can. Back in my Bible school days, I read somewhere that it was said that Eve apparently only gave birth to like 3. I don't know if that's true, But then her daughters had to really produce. I mean, and they say that the whole process was different. Um, I guess babies had a way of adapting. And then again, it gets back into that question, digressing here, folks. Watch out. I just took a swerve. How old was Adam? How old was Eve? I mean, were they just kids? They say certain Bible theologists say that, this took place within maybe less than a year. Now, I don't know how one man can name all the animals and how you do that, how long that would take. But getting back to the narrative, so they were just kids. And then you have this God that's cursing them. Anyway. Okay, hey Max Vision, what's up? The gods never let a disaster go to waste. Isn't that true? That reminds me of Rahm Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff. Never let a crisis go not exploited. It is true. Darwin Lunch, good to see you as well. Welcome everybody. See a lot of new people. Just let me hypothesis. I love that. Um, all right, so we're talking about extinction. Apparently, we're in it. Now, the thing about extinctions are interesting. They are typically a slow evolving event, but their endings always come with catastrophe and are always fast. So, question we have today, will humanity survive the sixth extinction? So I brought up some papers. I like how one person commented yesterday. Go check out the comments there. You'll see what my response is. Said, well, you're not doing anything, but just simply, talking about others and, reading papers and what have you. You got nothing to originally to say. Well, that's how you learn, Corey. Such an angry person. Hey, Chris, Mr. Mission Control, what's up? So, hey, Kathy, good to see you. So let me pull up the thoughts of others. It's okay. We love it. Their thoughts help give birth to our thoughts. Exactly. All right. So here we are. In this paper, actually, it's a book, and you got 340 pages. I guess technically it could be a long paper. But this is a group of thinkers. And in this case, this author puts it forward, they've really given thought to this. It's a serious topic. Our end can come, January 20th. For an intelligent species, we develop weapons that are designed to wipe us out. I think very smart. But that's the result of the indictment against this God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Jesus, whoever. They got blood on their soul, of spirit, if they have a soul. And then you're going to come and save us from the very thing that you created? Yeah, I don't know. I'm quite buying that anymore. The introduction, the risk of extinction. Will the human race become extinct fairly shortly? Have the dangers been underestimated? And ought we care? I mean, if you know you're going to die, it's like the movie The Miracle Mile when the phone call got. Denise Crosby was, I remember she played one of the roles, and I forget the other guy. He was another actor. Anyway, it came down that Doomsday was here, and a select group of people knew about it. Well, if one person knows about it, most likely someone else is going to. And the movie was predicated about what would you do with your last 12 hours? You know that at the stroke of midnight, let's say, or noon, that there is going to be an event can't be stopped. So what do you do in those 12 hours? How do you spend it? That's what we're talking about here. Because the rest of your life, however long that is, if you live the natural days that you are allotted, then you can say, well, at least I had a good life. And it sucks to be future generations, right? All right. The introduction will give the book's main argument. One of them is the Doomsday argument. Now, this is a recent argument, by the way, not that old. It originated by the cosmologist Brandon Carter that we ought to have some reluctance to believe that we are very exceptionally early. For instance, in the earliest 0.001% among all humans who will ever have lived, this would be some reason for thinking humankind will not survive many more centuries, let alone colonize the galaxy. I mean, I have more papers on, and trust me, I've been researching this for over a decade and a half now. And I'm finding more academic papers dealing with now this thing that we've created, this internet, this thing that's called artificial intelligence. Um, and it's really opened up Pandora's box because most of the thinkers of the modern era do not see a way out how we come out on top on this. But I digress. We continue, and there I've got a number of papers to go through. So this argument is designed to stir within us the questions that we can ask among ourselves as a group. It adds to our knowledge. As we begin to go out and explore more of the astral realms, this knowledge that is coming forth, this Gnosis, is something that I think has been sent to us. I mean, we digest small edible bites here, and that actually is a good thing. All right. Taken just by itself, the Doomsday argument could do little to tell us how long humankind will survive. I mean, when is this Doomsday? When is this extinction event? Is it going to be soon? And by soon, I say in the next 100 years. Or is it going to be in the next 1,000 years? What it might indicate, though, is that the likelihood of doom soon is greater than we would otherwise think. Here, otherwise thinking involves taking account of well-recognized dangers like those of pollution and nuclear war. Now, we all just left 4.5 years ago when there was a biological attack unleashed on the world. It may be a prelude to the next one. And I think they learned from their mistakes, if there is such a thing. Wow. And is there going to be another pandemic? The odd makers say it's almost a sheer bet. Changes the dynamics of doomsday extinction. There are also many other hazards which are seldom considered. The risk that physicists of the future experimenting at immensely high energies will upset a space-filling scalar field and destroy the world, a possibility taken seriously by some leading theorists. There are even risks coming from philosophical arguments. Us philosophers, apparently, we're a powerful group. Why? How could a philosophical argument lend itself to the extinction of all humans? Well, there is the following argument. For example, that any possible humans of the future couldn't be missing any benefit if they were never, in fact, born, because you have to be born before you can really miss things. I read that earlier and I said, boy, I could really go down a rabbit hole or two on that one. I mean, wow. And in one aspect, it's like the epitome of selfishness. Well, screw y'all. We had a great life, and man, the future don't look so bright, so have fun with it. It's like, oh, really? Well, thank you very little. So here's Carter's doomsday argument. Imagine a scene of the late 21st century. 12 billion humans walk the earth, but all are about to die. Now, to all the philosophers in the room, can we stop there a second? What would be the impact on the ethereal realm, the spiritual realm, when you have 12 billion souls entering in at almost the same time? I thought about this morning, and I came to two conclusions. One, it would absolutely crush that realm potentially, or there are so many over there in the countless trillions where 12 billion wouldn't be anything at all. It's just a minor, 5 o'clock rush hour. But anyway, so the case we have being set before us is that there are 12 billion people about to get the big ticket. It might be through loss of the ozone layer or poisoning by pollution. Hello, California, or nuclear war. But let us instead say it's through germ warfare. It's like the one of the bombs. What was the bombs they had in the 80s that would just destroy people, would destroy the infrastructure of bombs? Well, we've come up with even a faster way of doing that. The fatal virus had a long latency period in which it produced no symptoms, so that it spread everywhere without being detected. The aggressor nation's vaccines to protect itself have failed. Now, here's the part of me as an open-minded thinker. I'm going, if someone wrote about this, then that tells me there's someone in some bureaucracy, some bureaucrat, someone who has lost touch with humanity and themselves that have come up with this. I have no doubt the United States military has probably come up with this. I have no doubt. Add Russia, Britain, China, India. All these countries have what I would call illegal genetic labs where they're inventing crazy shit. In my book, The Start, I wrote about this 2 decades ago. That this, and my scenario is that one country of a foreign nature went back into their graveyards and began specifically digging up the DNA remains of individuals who died in 1918, 1919, 1920. And with that H1N5 influenza DNA, they reconstruct a new one that is designed that no human alive right now has any of the antibodies. And so in my book, this is how it was dispensed through aerosol. It's the reason why I didn't finish that book, because all the freaking things were. Anyway, one of the doomed humans complains of his remarkable bad luck in being born so late. There have been upward to 15,000 generations since the start of humanity's human history. Yet here I am in the one and the only generation which will have no successors. That's heavy. You couldn't do that to a generation. If this was the main thought, that you knew that this was going to be it, I think we would self-annihilate ourselves. It's just me. Isn't there an absurdity in his reasoning? If doom were to strike in about, let's say, 2090, then, because of population growth, perhaps a tenth of all humans who had ever lived would still be alive when it struck. Well, there can be nothing very remarkable in living at a time occupied by one of the 10 humans, 1 in 10 humans. Now consider the doomsday argument. Suppose that many thousand intelligent races, all of about the same size, had been more or less bound to evolve in our universe. We couldn't at all expect to be in the very earliest, could we? Very simply, it can seem you and I couldn't at all expect to find ourselves among the very first of several 100 billion humans, or of the many trillions in a human race which colonized its galaxy. We couldn't at all expect to be in the first 0.1%, let alone the first 0.001% of all humans who would ever have observed their positions in time. While technological advances encourage huge population explosions, they also bring new risk of sudden pollution collapse through nuclear war, industrial pollution, etc. Look at our ground. The very ground that we eat our food from no longer is actually would be considered 100 years ago food. Our technology is feeding our children, our adults, poison, highly processed food, has all the ingredients of death in it. That's why the pharmaceutical companies will never bring out a cure for any disease. There's no profit in curing, but there's great profit in managing. So all this technology, where's it leading us? We've seen what the elite are doing with the technology. Us peons down here, we get the scraps. And look what the scraps have done to us. If the human race came to an end soon after learning a little physics and chemistry, what would be remarkable in that? Suppose we were extremely confident that humans will have a long future. You and I would then simply have to accept that we were exceptionally early among all humans who would ever have been born. But might it make more sense to think of ourselves as living at the same time as, say, 10% of all humans? And shouldn't it be this consideration magnify any fears which we had for humanity's future, making our risk estimates rather more pessimistic? The Doomsday argument aims to show that we ought to feel some reluctance to accept any theory which made us very exceptionally early among all humans who would ever have been born. The sheer fact that such a theory made us very exceptionally early would at least strengthen any reasons we had for rejecting it. Just how much would it strengthen them? The answer would depend on just how strong the competing reasons were. The reasons for thinking that the human race would survive for many more centuries, perhaps colonizing the whole of its galaxy. The competition between reasons might even be modeled mathematically. And in fact, the Doomsday argument first appeared in about 1980 in the mind of the Cambridge cosmologist Brandon Carter, elected a fellow of the Royal Society in recognition of his research in applied mathematics. So think about this. This whole doomsday scenario is very recent. It's quite remarkable. If you do the research that I did this preliminarily last night when I was going through this, go and look for doomsday scenarios, say in the 1700s, 1800s. It really wasn't this, and there we were facing great challenges back then. So anyway, he says what we must bear in mind is that Carter's doomsday argument doesn't generate any risk estimates just by itself. It is an argument for revising the estimates which we generate when we consider various possible dangers. We should therefore consider some of them now, returning to this important argument only towards the end of the introduction. And I got a couple of the papers I want to go. So what comes to mind is the Deagle report, right? It said something is going to happen in 2025 that will reduce, in certain key industrialized countries, their human population by 2/3. And whatever this event is, it's going to reduce the human population by at least half. Now, that is a doomsday scenario. If you look at countries like the United States, Great Britain, Germany, France, I can go through these. Everyone except China and Russia. And then you have the Southern Hemisphere countries. And if you want, most of you surely have that PDF. So when you suddenly lose, and you can study economics on this, if 20% of the workforce suddenly woke up tomorrow morning and said, I'm not working, and it crosses all of the demographics of careers, that would collapse an economy 20%. And according to Deagle, in some cases, you're going to see 61%, 73%. In Great Britain's case, you're hitting almost 80%. And so if 80% of the population suddenly fell ill, died, you're looking at complete collapse. Now, what do the other nations do? I don't know. That's a scenario we could play out, but I don't think it would be good for the nation that suddenly has lost over 60% of its population. You wouldn't be able to defend your country. You wouldn't be able to keep the machine running. That's a consequence of the Deagle report. If it's true, I don't know. Let me get into another paper. We may come back to this one. This is another paper. This is the existential risk analysis of what's coming. And again, I don't know. I pull myself trying to think about, let's say that we're in the plains of Shinar, there in Sumer. Now, it appears that we knew there was a threat from whatever that lives in the firmament. And apparently they threatened us as a whole. So I wonder if that knowledge was distributed. I believe it would have been. And so when I take that situation for those human beings that were alive and then woke up the next day to a completely different reality, well, in the same way, we're talking about that same scenario, just in a different play. So the abstract on this paper here says, because of accelerating technological progress, humankind may be rapidly approaching a critical phase in its career. In addition to well-known threats such as nuclear holocaust, the prospects of radically transforming technologies like nanotech systems and machine intelligence presents us with unprecedented opportunities and risk. As a seasoned entrepreneur, you had to learn how to deal with risk. Everything you did had a risk. It was a risk reward. And I guess spending the decades I had as an entrepreneur, you begin to develop this sixth sense that risk is inevitable. Everything has risk. And if you're reluctant to take risk, well, then you're going to handicap yourself, and I do believe spiritually as well. It is only the risk takers that truly experience the rewards and, on the other hand, also experiences the loss. But if you can learn to adapt to that, oh, life becomes so much sweeter. And you're not afraid to take risk, understanding the consequences for such. It carries over into one's spirit as well. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Our future, and whether we will have a future at all, may well be determined by how we deal with these challenges. In the case of radically transforming technology, a better understanding of the transition dynamics from a human to a post-human society is needed. Of particular importance is to know where the pitfalls are and the ways in which things could go terribly wrong. While we have had long exposure to various personal, local, and endurable global hazards, this paper analyzes a recent emerging category, that of existential risk. These are threats that could cause our extinction or destroy the potential of Earth originating intelligent life. Wow. You look at all the channels that pontificate and bring out all the fear factor, the fear porn is what I call it. And you know, they get 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 views. Tells you something, doesn't it? Some of these threats are relatively well known, while others, including some of the gravest, have gone almost unrecognized. Existential risk have a cluster of features that make ordinary risk management ineffective. A final section of this paper discusses several ethical and policy implications. A clear understanding of the threat picture will enable us to formulate better strategies. And when I think about the competency of people in the military, people in the government, even people in corporations today, you have even more reason to be concerned. These people are idiots, morons. Legislators today, I doubt if they have an IQ above 96. Most of them are completely inept, have never had any business management of any kind, but yet, look at what we do to ourselves. Shoot ourselves in the foot every time. All right, let's continue. It's dangerous to be alive, and risks are everywhere. Luckily, not all risks are equally serious. For purposes, we can use three dimensions to describe the magnitude of the risk: the scope, intensity, and probability. By scope, I mean the size of the group of people that are at risk. By intensity, I mean how badly each individual in the group would be affected. And by probability, I mean the best current subjective estimate of the probability of the adverse outcome. 1.1, this is the typology of risk. We can distinguish 6 qualitatively distinct types of risk based on their scope and intensity. The third dimension, probability, can be superimposed on the 2 dimensions plotted in the figure. Other things equal, all other things equal, a risk is more serious if it has a substantial probability and if our actions can make that probability significantly greater or smaller. So let me ask you, bringing politics into this thing, do you think we're more secure with Biden leaving and Trump coming in? Be curious to see what you think on that. Would you say that the scope of being in more dangerous times has increased because of a new government, being in this case Trump, coming in, than the one that is leaving. And what would those factors be? I mean, if you have one side saying, we're going to unleash all hell if you don't go with us, but how does that play out when the other person says, well, fuck you, we've got powerful toys too? Is that kind of a scenario? Do you see the United States government falling into civil war? That would be a factor. That would set off a chain of events that would be almost unprecedented. Imagine if you had someone that's running a experimental germ lab who happens to be of one political ideology, who decides that they're going to take a stand for their side and do something very stupid. That's what I'm talking about. So the personal, local, or global refer to the size of population is that directly affected. A global risk is one that affects the whole of humankind and our successors. Endurable versus terminal indicates how intensely the target population would be affected. An endurable risk may cause great destruction, but one can either recover from the damage or find ways of coping with the fallout. In contrast, a terminal risk is one where the targets are either annihilated or irreversibly crippled in ways that radically reduce their potential to live the sort of life they aspire to. In the case of personal risk, for instance, a terminal outcome could, for example, be death, permanent severe brain damage, or a lifetime prison sentence. As an example of a local terminal risk would be genocide, leading to the annihilation of people. This happened to several Indian nations. Permanent enslavement as another example. We, the United States government, did this to the Native Americans. We're good at it. What we did was to put a once proud nation, we put them on the endangered extinction list. So don't say that this can't happen. It's already happened. Loving the positivity on this one. Can I have some more of that, please? All right, let's get to the existential risk. It says in this paper, we shall discuss risk of the sixth category and one marked with an X. This is the category of global terminal risk. I shall call these existential risk. Existential risks are distinct from global endurable risk. Example of the latter kind include threats to the biodiversity of Earth's ecosphere, moderate global warming, global economic recessions, even major ones, and possibly stifling cultural and religious eras such as the Dark Ages, even if they encompass the whole global community. So that means a group of people would, let's say that they've done to our ancestors, burn them at the stake, torture them, whatever. It's happened before, it'll happen again. Yeah. Imagine the Dark Ages. And who was behind that? It provided that they are transitory, and it talks about seen in the Sheikh's section, to say that a particular global risk is endurable is evidently not to say that it is acceptable or not very serious. A world war fought with conventional weapons or a Nazi-style Reich lasting for a decade would be extremely horrible event, even though they would fall under the rubric of endurable global risk, since humanity could eventually recover. On the other hand, they could be local terminal risks for many individuals and for persecuted ethnic groups. I was thinking about this one. So it is estimated somewhere between 200 to 250 million souls were lost in World War II. If we had, and if you extrapolate population size and growth to the technology curve that we would have, if there was in fact a world war, the question would become would we use the tactical nukes? Would we then begin to completely annihilate local cities where they become hot zones? Would there be an unleashing of bioweapons? Much like the United States did. I'm a victim of Lyme disease. The United States owes me millions of dollars because they're the ones that unleashed it. And look at the damage. We're still learning what this Lyme disease does. I mean, the risks, and my question is, let's put it in context, does that risk increase exponentially past Monday, January 20th, or does it decrease? He uses the term existential risk and is defined as one where an adverse outcome would either annihilate Earth originating intelligent life or permanently and drastically curtail its potential, slamming us back into the Stone Age. And we know that if there was a sudden disruption, we saw it during COVID, that where you start disrupting the distribution channel, where goods, foods cannot be moved, things begin to get very serious within, there is actually one where you can see it's a pamphlet. By day 3, you start reaching what they would call the powder keg, the fuse has been lit. Because within day 7 of a family who has no foods, they lose all sense of moral compass, ethical. Humans would do anything to get food. Yeah, they don't realize that they could. So an existential risk is one where humankind as a whole is imperiled. Existential disasters have major adverse consequences for the course of human civilization for all time to come. And we haven't even factored in what happens in the midst of all these existential risks when you have nature unleashing her fury. Because I have no doubt Mother Earth is pissed. But you have your own. And I'm looking at the time, which really sucks. We'll pick up on this tomorrow. It's worthy. Because there's a couple of others that, when you look into this across the board, it really becomes very clear that it may be more timely than what we can recognize. Think about it. And we got so many other factors. I mean, decide going with the science fiction of AI turning on humanity, our own creation, right? But people are people. I mean, someone released that bioweapon, some individual. We may never know who that individual is, but somebody did it. So it makes you think, well, what'll have the next time? I don't know, but I got a sense that if I were to go to Vegas, the odd makers would say, well, your odds are pretty good, dude. The doctor, appreciate it. And then we're going to still get back onto our book of the alternate history, because here's just a thought. And there are plenty of channels out there that in one way, embrace this as well. Uh, Again, I think of Roger over at Mud Fossils. And there's other channels that as well that we may have been extinction level events very recently. Some say with the Tartarian Empire falling. I did a whole series on the world expositions, the world fairs, and how they had electric boats and cars in both Chicago and St. Louis, and how they transformed the landscape and the technology that was used, and then all of a sudden that technology is gone. And that somehow or another that these buildings that even in the modern time we could probably not replicate, and definitely couldn't do it as fast as they put, and they weren't just Hollywood sets, you know. But again, so the Tartarians, where did they go? And I can't help, folks, ever since we got deeply into the story yesterday about them using some sort of technology, and maybe it's just the skeptic in me, but if you use that once, we have no evidence that we could go to that they haven't used a similar type weapon on us again. I mean, just think about this. You have that type of power, and I don't believe it's because you're a fucking god. I don't think that has anything to do with it at all. God is technology. If you know all technology, you are God. You don't have to be. You could be immortal. But you got technology. But get back to this. There had to be an armada. Now, I'm assuming that because I'm trying to take many different scenarios. Or maybe there was a beam, there was a ray. Maybe it was a biologic that was released. Something on a scale altered us. And I can't help but not think that if they've done it before, I have no doubt they've done it again. And I don't think just once. I don't know. Who's to say? What's all happening? I have to go back and read this. Stuart, yeah, yeah. And that's interesting, that dark city. Every time when we go to sleep, yeah, I mean, and they would do the churning, right? And yeah, I keep, if you haven't seen Dark City, go and watch it. It's well played out, but the frightening aspect of it is that we wouldn't know. I mean, when we go to sleep, you're not here. I mean, you're here, but you're not here. And if you've got that kind of technology where you can wipe out a person's complete database, what the hell do you think they could do with our dreams? I mean, you get this very uncomfortable feeling like you got this freaking collar around us, right? And it's very evident in the spirit realm. Just speculating. Um, okay. I love this. Thank all of you. Boy, I've gone over again. Who cares? There needs to be more discussion like this. I don't have the answers. I'm like the rest of you. And when I see people, make claims and, it's like, okay. But, the bolder the claim, the more extraordinary it is, the more extraordinary proof is going to be required. And that's part of what I love about this group. We are iron that sharpens iron. You can have a belief or a thought or an idea, but you can expect to maybe be, challenged on it. Like, well, how'd you come to that conclusion? I do know, but I am curious. If you're watching this on replay, then leave it in the comment. Tell me, do you think that we're more secure after January 20th than where we are now? Or do you think that the existential risk factor has increased exponentially after January 20th from where it is now? I mean, again, no one knows, Deagle when they was out there, when they were out there on the web, they said that they simply were using accessible data to make their models. Well, what did they have in their models that would ever have zeroed in on 2025? And lo and behold, here we be. So is it going to be? I don't know, but it's going to be fun. Um, Mr. Mission Control says speculation about your own perception is healthy. Yes, challenge your reality. I got a sweatshirt that has that on. That when I wear that, I get sometimes people that get it, and then I get people who get this look on their face like, what does that mean? I, I heard one couple, one in the, I'm assuming it was his wife, and she says, "How do you challenge your reality?" I can hear, And I wanted to go back and say, well, but no, you weren't invited to that, right? And I'm pretty sure that she probably may have just sloughed it off, but then again, maybe it planted the seed of what does that mean to challenge my reality? Yeah. All right. I appreciate y'all. I love all these comments. Okay, folks, we'll be here. We'll pick this up tomorrow. It doesn't stop. And we're going to get back to the dragon world because I want to go to the dragon world. And we got to make sure that, we would be welcome. Because the last thing we want is get our butts kicked. It's like, hey man, peace, peace. Well, peace over here means like, okay, no. Stuart says, Wayne, the website, yeah. So exactly. And those that have that kind of information, it's interesting. But I'm skeptical in a lot of things that I read or I hear about. And, in this day, in this digital age, manipulation of data it's very craftily done. But yeah, I do agree with those websites. Yeah. Rick, hope you're feeling better, brother. Appreciate you do. Elderberry, have yourself a great day as well. The rest of y'all do as well. Because this is a weird ass reality. I don't care what anyone says. It's freaking weird. But I love it. I love it and I want more of it. Isn't that what it says? Yeah. Because and if it's weirdness, I think we're about to get a big dose of it. All I gotta say is bring a big spoon. All right, experience is the key. Gaia, that is so true. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Much love to y'all. Still weak, but getting stronger. Well, Rick, we just send the thing about it is sending things by the mind and by the spirit is that the spirit transcends space and time. So just speaking energy into your body there, Rick, and it goes all the way down to the cellular level. It's like energizing each cell, and that cell gets excited, and then it spreads that excitement to the next cell. And before you know it, you've got a freaking, exciting revolution going on. So we send you love on that. All right, everybody, have yourselves a great day. Joe Mack, we all win. I like that too. Revelations 9 in 4 days. I hope not, but hey, listen, no matter how that goes down, I contend to go back from where we started on this. Someone, whether it be God, this Lord character, I don't know who, but someone has got some explaining to do because you did something to us you had no legal right to do. And that's just how I see it. Lauren, how are you doing, darling? Good to see you. So, all right, folks, much love to you. We will see each other again on Friday. All right. Bye.